Got to always be ready to roll here on the live stream. You can see that I've ditched the jacket. It's it's that time in the conference where it's time to get relaxed and comfortable. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to see you.
Likewise, it's really great being here. This is a great conference.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a good place to start. What are your sort of takeaways from the last couple of days? What's kind of in your mind as you've listened to the different content, participated in all the different conversations? What sort of jumps to mind as like key takeaways or things that you are like really thinking more about?
One thing that I like to do at our company is kind of dive into very complex business cases and complex problems. We look at Bloomreach as a partner along with many other partners in solving different categories of problems for the merchants that we work with. And it's really, really interesting to see just the kind of problems that 2 billion plus companies have. And so just a lot of conversations with some of the merchants is enlightening because problems are like puzzles to me, and it's fascinating to see like they're a problem. How do you solve them? And how to use the technology, and how do you not make it a wash, right? How do you not fail at doing it? And AI is kind of a new tool that we as developers, engineers, and solution providers have to tackle some of the problems, some new areas, new problems that we couldn't solve before. One thing that I really like so far that I've had the opportunity to do is talk to some of the startup partners and see the kinds of innovations that they're unlocking really with these new tools, with Gen AI. And then of course, some of them being in the game for even longer pre-Gen AI. So interesting to see how we can take advantage of some of these startups and their technologies and pitch them to our customers, to our merchants, and give them kind of the value that they seek. Because so many times we have merchants come to us and they have a resource problem, or they have individuals that are always constrained in some way to solving the problem.
In other words, their teams are relatively small. They've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
Right. And this is something we've talked about here in the room before as well, which is, okay, naturally the media and even in the sort of pop culture, when people talk about Gen AI, a lot of people immediately jump to concerns around job loss and what is AI coming for my job, et cetera. But in our industry, it's actually not an issue I'm concerned about, because these teams are so constrained, as you said. Many of your clients are faced with that kind of challenge. And here comes a set of tools that can really help support and help drive more efficiency, hopefully freeing up time, right, to spend on high value aspects of their business or how they work with and market to the customer.
Yeah. So as a quick side note, for me as an engineer, it's very common that a lot of the things that I do are interesting, but some of it is just not. Right.
Yeah, right.
And I would really like.
That's true in my job too, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's true in a lot of industries, right? You have things that you really don't like to do, and thankfully for my sector, it's like Gen AI is an unlock to help me push past some of those boring states, and then let me be a thought partner or a problem solver for the merchants that we work with, be able to execute and deliver on those business goals, as opposed to really just doing the basics. And so I think that's really a fantastic thing. And these startups are providing some of the tools that are letting people that have been constrained solve the problems that they would need a larger team or a more a stronger skill set from their internal team to deliver on for some of those business goals that the companies have. Like one example is analytics and data. There's kind of like a decision paralysis that we see a lot of companies have when they're resource constrained. What areas do I want to push attention to, right? Where do I supply that attention? Where do I supply the resources? And with some of these tools, they unlock what you can do with your data, and they give you a faster way to try and fail.
Exactly.
And that's really kind of key. It's key in AI, it's key in software development, trying and failing quickly, doing proof of concepts. And if you can do that quickly and cheaply, you get a better understanding of what the use case that you have is. You get to refine it better. And ultimately, that's better for the business, right? To just know your use case and iterate on it quickly. because a lot of businesses, they have lofty ideas, lofty goals, and when they fail, that's more constraints for everyone else.
Well, I mean, we've really moved, tremendous distance in the last 20, 30 years, right? When it comes to the technology and the solutions that people are working with today versus 20 or 30 years ago, where, you really could only move so fast because not only were you developing inside of basically a, quote unquote monolithic application, and it was going to be hosted somewhere, probably have to rent data center space. And of course, any changes to the software had to get tested and rolled. And, there was go lives and all these crazy things. And you could really only do that a couple times a year. And of course, then there was lockdown and all these kind of things. And now we're moving toward a composable, more API centric, sort of web development environment, headless, et cetera. And then you add some of these tools in, and now you've got an opportunity to experiment quickly and hopefully efficiently. And then, some of these kinds of things you're describing, could be larger and more, I say complex or disruptive or what have you. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's literally testing content, right? Or tweaks to the user experience. And you need variations in order to do that. And that's, of course, something that we've talked a lot about here. The people dialing in here onto the live stream, joining us on the live stream, have heard me talk about already. But something I'm very excited about is the unlock around, content variation. And something as simple as I want 300 variants of this content. And then I'm going to do a king of the hill testing kind of process, automate perhaps a lot of that to make sure that I'm really delivering to the different segments and audiences I'm trying to target what they're responding to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What actually works. And that's a fairly simple use case. And we've got the technology to do the optimization and personalization essentially in place already.
Mm-hmm.
So content variation is in a sense an unlock. And there's a lot of other types of user experiences that certainly would be more complex than that. But something as simple as that is a tremendous opportunity.
I'll give you some examples of where I saw Gen AI as being particularly interesting. I attended Adobe Summit a few months back, and they had a fun on-stage demo of Firefly, their tool for Gen AI for image generation. And they had a fictional pizza company, and they had a static image. And the idea that Adobe was trying to pitch was, these are your product images, but then we can bias them and tweak them so that they fit a different cohort, different segment. So they just say, all right, generate this guy running on the beach. So he's like running on the beach with a pizza, like completely, you'd never want to do a photo shoot with that. But hey, it's fun. You could try it with
that kind of content in the past, right? Running photo shoots like that on model, in an environment, like on location, I should say, very expensive, very expensive. Even static product photography, right? In studio, very expensive, right? Now creating content variants, like I want pizza guy on the beach. I want pizza guy on the chairlift. I want pizza guy, in the pit crew. Oh, well, it's your imagination. Now, the tools are still improving, so maybe they're not quite to the fidelity you'd want to use, but they'll soon be at that level of fidelity, in my opinion. So now it's really about the imagination of the marketer. And then you think about all the diversity within your customer base, right? Are you going to market only to me? No. You want to make sure you're marketing to a wide variety of different people, right? So your website, your digital marketing, et cetera. Well, why can't you make Pizza Guy, right, appeal very, very directly because it looks like who you're trying to serve, right? So you think about segmentation in race or demographics or background, these kinds of things is just one aspect. Obviously, lifestyle and interests and all these other things. Suddenly, these are just inputs, right? These are just prompts. And so that's what I mean by content variation becomes kind of this interesting unlock. Now, did they serve pizza after this demo to the audience?
That would have been interesting, but they did not.
See, Adobe.
There was actually they did rent out Area 15 completely, which was pretty interesting. If you're familiar with the Las Vegas Area 15 establishment, like whole thing
No,
to
I'm
that, to
I'm
those
just
folks.
teasing. I was just a little dig at Adobe.
There was also a protest mid
Really?
speech. Yeah.
Really? I did not hear about that.
Animal rights.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not hear about that.
Yeah. It was an interesting one.
At the Adobe Summit?
Yeah. Yep.
Really?
Yep. Animal rights activists went on stage during, I think there was a CEO of a pharmaceutical company
Oh, interesting.
that was being interviewed by the CEO of
That
Adobe.
did not, at least didn't reach me. I didn't hear about that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so that was the thing. One thing that I want to shift to is the second interesting thing that I saw, which was kind of something that I use internally. I use Gen AI to somehow unlock what I don't know. So I would print out what it is that I'm trying to do. Like I'd write it out, and then I would ask it, like, what am I missing from this equation?
I've actually done something similar.
Yeah.
I do that as well. I use Gen AI in a similar way. If I'm doing, for example, my newsletter, which the audience has also heard me talk about, Cocktails and Commerce, I'll do the same thing. So I'll say, ask question or the prompt, and like, what else should I consider? I don't find myself copying and pasting what it has to say, but it's certainly helpful to prompt me to say, oh, you might want to think about this or that.
So tying that in, what I saw Adobe do really well, demonstrate really well, is this idea that as a marketer, and I'm not a marketer, but I saw this and I thought it was pretty fantastic. You can have it generate the entire customer journey.
Yeah.
Say you're a travel company and you want to sell experiences. Well, there are definitely separate instances where you have to communicate with people. Initially, when they're doing the research of where they want to go, after they've booked the trip, you need to provide them with information that would help them succeed, do well. When they land, right, there are certain things that you want to do. And so it's like using Gen AI to generate the first draft of like all the touch points and all of the interactions that you might have with them, with all the emails and marketing materials and stuff like that, even imagery generated, right? And then that's like kind of like some marketers might be really excellent and completely understand all the elements of the customer journey, but the Gen AI might know more, right? And so being able to take someone who might not have that experience and then just demonstrate a lot more out of the box is kind of like learning, right?
Exactly right. I think that's a really interesting example of how, in a sense, you can take, and there's a lot of different parts of the business that would be similar. So, for example, here at the conference, the opportunity to now interrogate your data set, right, in a natural language way. You do not have to be a data scientist. You do not have to understand how to use your BI tool, which often will take some level of experience. You don't have to wait 2 weeks for the analyst to come back with the answer, and then another 2 weeks when you ask the follow-up question and get the answer, because they're obviously backed up and have a lot of work to do.
And at that point, it's too late. You may have not responded to the pressures that you're seeing.
So instead, now I can just, in a sense, have a conversation with a system. Think of it as your best intern or your best data analyst sitting next to you. Those are really interesting possibilities. But likewise,
so I spoke both to Data Iris and Zenlytic about that. And, it was fascinating and super, super valuable to some of our merchants.
I think those are really interesting and potentially very powerful, transformative back office tool sets, right? And I think the kind of example that you shared there around mapping out a customer journey based on segment, based on user behavior, all these kinds of things. We saw some of that also from Bloomreach in terms of how the user journey in a marketing campaign can basically be pre-populated. And we're really early yet. We're seeing already these kind of amazing possibilities. What's top of mind for your clients on these topics? Because we're talking about some of the interesting possibilities here, but what's actually top of mind for the clients that you're talking to today?
When can we have it, and how quickly? Because that's just kind of how we are. We are the ones that will tell them, right? That we're proactive about it. Like, this is something that's very interesting. We see this trend in the industry. There are certain business problems that you have presented to us in the past that we may not have given you a good answer for, and now we have one. And maybe it's time to reapproach the problem and try to cover it from the Gen AI perspective. And of course, on the on the higher end, some businesses, not every business problem is solved with Gen AI, and so
No, of course
for
not.
some businesses, just there's not a lot of use out of it. But for sure, a lot of the merchants that we work with are really interested in how they can use it. But there are other fundamental things that have to be done in AI that I think all businesses in our sector in e-commerce need to get right. So they need to get product recommendations right, like almost baseline kind of the thing that they have to do. Then they have to do search, make sure that search, that aspect of it is very well defined, and we're very well structured and works primarily. Obviously, checkout, cart optimization,
Blocking and tackling.
Right, and of course, everything else around that, getting people to the website, that's where Gen AI can be very helpful to them and help unlock some of the limitations and resources that they have in their teams for doing that testing, because testing requires a certain mindset, a certain experimental mindset, and basically being able to ask an expert, right, even if they have generic industry knowledge and not specific industry knowledge, helps everyone be better.
That's right.
Be better anything. And so if you know how to ask the question, right? And so what we're seeing is a lot more of our merchants are moving into data-driven approaches, because previously it required that internal expertise, and they don't need that as much anymore. And they have more time and resources available to unlock these areas that were just kind of like left alone so long in the industry.
Yeah. Wonderful. Very, very exciting. Georgiy, it's been wonderful to have you here, and I hope you enjoyed your time in Napa. And I'm just kind of interested, what's your when you get back to the office, what are you gonna tell people?
Well, I'm here for another week, so people aren't going to hear from me. People aren't going to hear from me for a bit, but
sampling some wine and find California cuisine, hopefully.
When I get back, I'm going to tell them about the partners that we learned about.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure
speaking
with you.
Yeah, take care.
Likewise. Thanks to the audience.